watching CNC3.
As we speak, the House of Representatives is currently debating whether they should give Finance Minister Dave Tanku $3.14 billion in supplemental appropriation for him to continue running the country towards the next fiscal budget, which will be sometime at the end of September, early October. That will raise the deficit from an estimated $5.5 billion last year from Finance Minister Com Imbert to less than $10 billion by the time we get to that budget. To unpack many of the highlights from the first mid-year budget review from Finance Minister Devendranath Tanku, I have with me on set Amrita Devanarayan, who is an economist and former independent senator, Nirad Tiwari, who is the AmCham TT Chief Executive Officer, and Karen Nunez Teixeira, who's the former finance minister in the Patrick Manning administration. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Lots for us to unpack, so let's get right into it. And I'm going to start with the highlights from you, Karen, on Minister Tanku's debut mid-year budget review speech.
Well, I think he was making a maiden speech, so everybody was looking out to see how he would do it, because it's really not a mid-year review, because mid-year review would be a continuation of the former administration, which it was not. So that I would say that he did highlight important factors that to give an indication of the kind of spend that they had to deal with, and he also was able to identify, which I think all of us knew, and he knew that we knew that the amount that they had to increase the budget revenue by $3.14 billion. What he did not give, and I think that was what he was didn't give much details on, was where were they going to get that money from.
That remains the million-dollar question.
But he did say multilateral agencies. He did say that. And he also did mention the local market, the local bond market. So to that extent, it's the same thing that the former government
exactly,
would have
because
done.
now that increases your debt. I'll come back to you in a minute, Karen. Nirad, what did you think?
Well, it seems, so they've been in office for just under 2 months, right? And it seems like they had an imperative to manage cash flow, and therefore they had a time constraint to get this done, which it feels like they have not yet compiled all of the information on the state of the economy, the true state of the economy. So Minister Tanku spoke a lot about bills that were outstanding, that were not paid. He did mention that the actual expenditure was down by $1 billion up to this point, which is normal. Quite often, budgeted expenditure is not actually used at the end of the fiscal period. But the extent to which there are outstanding bills that they need to take care of. What was unclear to me, and maybe this is just me not understanding the numbers, but I'm not sure if I'm missing $1 billion somewhere, because 5.5 and 3.1 for, I get 8.6 thereabouts.
Karen, I'm going to throw that one at you. You're a former finance minister. Doesn't Nirad have a point there?
Well, I mean, it's neither here nor $400 million is really going to make.
Well, it's $1 billion.
Well, yes, but okay. So all this is estimated. What the fiscal deficit is going to be, and one has to bear in mind now that you're seeing an uptick in revenue in the energy sector. Okay, we don't have the kind of production we need, but guess what happened in 2022? We didn't have it either, and so we did extremely well. So I think what we're going to see is that if there is a misfit there or miscalculation there, we have to look and see what's going to happen in the next 3 months with the revenue on the energy sector side, because there is an uptick both on the oil and both on the gas. So yes, he may have made a mistake. I wasn't paying that much attention to that part. I was listening to how he was looking at the kind of expenditure that they had, and also talked about the project with the IDB project. He mentioned an IDB project. He spoke about an IDB project that was supposed to be financed, and they never got it off the ground.
This was the CAF project for coastal
project,
support
yes,
in Tobago. It's small.
Right.
It's a 15 million.
It was only 15? That's all?
All right, let's come back to that in a moment. Amrita, your opening thoughts on the finance minister's statement today.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I think the minister, basically, he gave an assessment of, the true state of revenue and expenditure for the country. It was clear that, his focus was, bringing attention to the size of the deficit and the fact that the supplementation of in the mid-year review is mostly for arrears and for, rentals and all these different types of expenditure. But having sat in the Senate and having gone through many mid-year budget reviews, usually mid-year budget reviews are like this, where, you come in and you supplement any shortfalls in expenditure. What is my concern, though, is that this supplementation now brings the expenditure, the total expenditure, to about approximately $63 billion, which is the highest level of expenditure that we have ever recorded historically. And it immediately brings into question, very well hearing the statements that the minister has made with respect to these are recurrent expenditure. These are expenses that has to be met. It raises the question to me in terms of the sustainability and also in terms of the increase of the debt to finance this deficit. So that's where my concerns are. However, I also would have preferred to hear a lot more in terms of the state of the economy. But as both Nirad and Mrs. Nunes Teixeira said, it's barely 6 weeks into their term, and he probably is still at the stage where they are doing a lot of diagnostic assessments of the economy.
Karen, I suspect over the next week, as economists analyze this on multiple television stations, multiple newspapers, they're going to say exactly what Amrita said. Where is the money going to come from? This is a very huge deficit that has just ballooned from $5.5 billion to $10 billion, just under $10 billion. As a former finance minister, do you hear those alarm bells ringing as economists do?
But the fact of the matter is, I think I went back to earlier budgets, and some of the earlier budgets under the former administration were in the region of 60 billion in the very beginning. So you have to look at the erosion of the dollar. So it did go down, yes, but I think in the first 2016, 2017, I saw figures nearing that amount. No?
No.
Yeah.
No,
it was never so high.
No, in 2016, so it was high in 2015, and in the first couple of years, the last administration brought it down, they slashed, and then they started going back up. And I mean, we've had deficits in the vicinity of $20 billion. In 2020, the deficit was $17.3 billion. So I think it's unfair, it's very unfair to come and judge this minister after 6 weeks trying to manage cash flow by talking about the deficit, because they've not announced any big spending outside of existing commitments.
Recurrent expenditure.
I think that the overall debt has to be a concern, and one which we would like to see some direction, some policy direction on in the budget. But I don't think at this point it is fair to come and say, well, the deficit is so. The deficit last year, according to the numbers I have, was 9.6 billion. So they've come in and they have obligations. They've come in and they have things to manage. They've come in on the back of an election spend, and we know what happens with government expenditure at election time. So what I am hearing from this government in our interactions with them and today are two important things so far. Whether they will materialize into executable policy remains to be seen. But the two important things are the willingness to listen and work with the private sector and to facilitate private sector investment into the productive sector, into productive activities, even potentially serving as an intermediary between the development international lending agencies and the private sector, which is something the international lending agencies, as Amrita would know very well, have been trying to do for a long time. They've been saying that their private sector lending portfolio is too small in the Caribbean, and we need to up that.
But
so that's one.
And
the second point is that today, instead of just talking about foreign exchange allocations, which he did, he started speaking about how they are thinking about bringing foreign exchange back into the system through the private sector, and how they are thinking about incentivizing the private sector to utilize and deploy FX that they earn and FX that they have. And that is important, because too much of the conversation treats the discussion as though foreign exchange is a commodity that will always be scarce, and we always have to ration with the state playing a central role. And once that is the philosophy, the economy will always be out of balance. So we have to increase the supply, and we have to incentivize holders and earners of foreign exchange to deploy it in the economy. So we don't know what that will be, because he said he's just thinking about tax incentives for this and that and the other. But it is important that they're already thinking about the supply side and have some ideas.
I just wanted to say something on after that. Is that the 60 million, you have to look at the purchasing power of that 60 million. 60 million, or 60 billion, 60 billion in this year is not 60 billion
Correct.
in 2015. It's not 60 billion in 2015. If you took that 60 billion and looked at the purchasing power of that 60 billion, is probably you're looking more like 50 billion. Is that really a huge increase in the budget when you have to be dealing with inflation, you're dealing with erosion of the dollar, so that if you are going to be able to run a country and have the commitments that you do have with recurrent expenditure, capital development, you can't be looking at the same revenue figures that you looked at in 2015. It's not being realistic.
Well, that's a valid point, right? And with that being said, what should also be taken into consideration, regardless of the fact that this is a new administration and the deficit is being inherited, what is also very important and is very critical is the fact that these are the macroeconomic indicators. The size of this deficit contributes to the fiscal and the debt sustainability indicators of the country, which is something that international credit rating agencies take into consideration when they are doing their
That's
assessments.
one of the points that former Finance Minister Cominbert pressed on during his contribution. He pressed on that particular point quite a lot.
And in addition to that, the mere fact that we have affirmed our last credit rating with Standard & Poor's going forward, that outlook and that reaffirmation of that rating was contingent upon certain things taking place in the economy. And that was, one, fiscal consolidation continuing. The other was with respect to controlling the level of expenditure. 3 was the increase in revenue mobilization efforts to increase revenues, some of which the minister has mentioned, but a lot of which are going to be materialized in the medium to long term, taking into consideration the fact that a lot of the revenue raising measures are now being reconsidered by the existing administration. So we need to take all these things into consideration. Yes, I agree, it's a new administration. Yes, I also agree that they have to do their assessment. Yes, there are going to be changes in policies that will may very well be successful. But with that being said, we have macroeconomic indicators that we also need to maintain and take into consideration as we move forward.
No, sure, but it's as we move forward, because my point is 6 weeks in, burdened with whatever the legacy is for the first 9 months of the fiscal period, you have very, very limited options to close the year, right?
I agree with you.
So all I'm saying is you can't judge them at this point on the deficit, right? I'm not saying you're judging on the deficit.
I'm not judging the minister. I'm looking at the indicators from an independent perspective and what those indicators mean in terms represent for our economy from a fiscal and debt sustainability perspective.
Okay, but they weren't going to change in this period. It was, I mean, it would have been really, really surprising.
But Nirad, it is a problem, and it has to be dealt with quickly.
Good.
And I think she's right. I mean, you seem to be making a lot of excuses for the government. We understand it's 6 weeks, but I think they themselves projected we will fix it. Very positive, messages to the public. And I think people were looking to see, but what were they going to do different? And it doesn't seem they're doing anything different.
Right.
They're borrowing, and a lot of the borrowing is recurrent expenditure, little on the capital side. And so I don't know that I heard him talk, for example, the energy sector. I didn't hear him talk about diversification plans to increase the revenue take. I didn't hear any of that.
All right, so let's let Nirad respond, and then I want to take the conversation down the Forex road that you spoke about, because that was an important point that the finance minister made today. Right. Nirad?
So the point I'm trying to make is that I feel like we need to have a conversation rooted in some reality and the political economy. Now, if we were having this conversation after the budget, then the national budget 2025-26, then if the deficit were $10 billion, the government at that point would have no excuse for deciding to continue in the same with the same fiscal approach as the last government, right? Now, I also don't think that they're going to be able to go from where they are now to rein it in significantly in the short term. So the question then is how do they take the little wiggle room, and the wiggle room being, one, whether we decide to draw down on whether they decide to draw down on the HSF, whether they decide to borrow more or whatever, but use that for the PSIP or investments as opposed to recurrent expenditure, because our wage bill, our recurrent expenditure is quite high, and if they add the increase to public servants this year, and back pay, it's going to be a massive hit. So where are they going to get the money for productive activities? And then I think absolutely. So everything Amrita said, I agree with. All I'm saying is tonight, 6 weeks in with the mid-year review, the discussion, I don't think, could center around the deficit. I don't think that is going to take us forward. The question is, he only identified maybe a dozen policy measures. Are those, give or take, are those policy measures, one, enough? Are they going to lead to the diversification? Are they a good indicator of what their long-term strategy is to manage the economy? And those are the things that I think we should be analyzing in the context of hopefully some of the conversation, as you said, over the next week or so, will inform thinking as we get to the national budget, where we would expect the new government to have settled in and really start to take hold of the economy and tell us how they're going to do things differently, right? Because as they said, people voted for them because in part they didn't like how the economy was being managed in the past. So what are you going to do differently in October?
Well, one of the things that...
Just let me just say, and I'll be quick on it. I do think there was an expectation that all it was a mid-year review, given there was a change of government, and given that the national community knew already the kind of debt we were looking at, the kind of foreign exchange reserve. They understood all those issues. I think there was an expectation that they would have come out and said something more meaningful in terms of how are they going to do something different from the past administration. And what I heard was more of the same thing.
There was also a lot of platform speeches in that statement. But let's take a quick break. When we come back, the finance minister also announcing that a Forex management committee is to be set up. He says it will lead to more transparency when it comes to foreign exchange in this country. The panel will discuss next.
10 days. With this one-man show, Love Is, June 21st and 22nd at Queen's Hall. 1 children show, 2 adult shows, 1 hilarious weekend. So wait, who on this Love Is show? Apple, Wetty, Mark, Flicky, Jessica, Cherise, Maya Kai, Mr. Trevor, Miss Janice, Alrighty, Rock. Wait, I not hearing my name. We have John Paul from Canada, Penelope from Belmont, and Cecilia from Digo. I still not hearing my name. Tickets available at Dorman Shoe Store, Beachology, Mokorapa Road, Gate Square Stores, Eastgate Mall, Brentwood Plaza, The Falls at West Mall, C3 Center, San Fernando, Electronics Arima, Queen's Hall Box Office, and online at islandetickets.com. All year road only using me and I not in the show who he feel I is. Bubbly Builder. For more info, call 376-5699 or 683-4843.
Welcome to ABC Doors and Windows, TNT's #1 destination for the best quality and widest variety of doors and windows. Enhance your space with our premium wooden, steel panels, fiberglass, and steel security doors, complemented by our aluminum, UPVC, and steel windows. Shop for the best quality and service at ABC Doors and Windows. Visit our impressive showroom at 1 Chancatrace, El Socorro South, or call 638-7184 to get started. Trust ABC for a better choice.
Get the best in affordable eyewear. Frames with blue filter lenses and eye exam, $399. Single vision lenses with transitions on designer frames, $799. Progressive transitions with designer frames, $1,399. Happening only at Seaview Optical. Affordable eye care for everyone.
Cold or flu? Take Panadol multi-symptoms. Relief in minutes. 7 cold and flu symptoms. Panadol. Release starts here.
Period nights don't have to look like this. Move less, wake up to change. So change for a real night's sleep with Always Overnight. Its 3 times protection system absorbs, locks the fluid, and keeps it away from your skin. For protected nights without leaks. Always.
Your immune system is your first line of defense. Discover BioStrath Immune Health. BioStrath Immune Health is enriched with zinc, ensuring that your body stays resilient. BioStrath Immune Health. Get what you need naturally.
Crack the science of stronger hair. New Fructis with keratin, protein, or biotin in reloaded systems. Up to 72 hours frizz control, 48 hours definition, or 72 hours thicker looking hair. New Fructis by Garnier, naturally.
With Redoxytose Plus, you'll notice their defenses kicking in. Strong defenses look so good on your kids.
Mr. Speaker, to address persistent foreign exchange shortages, we will collaborate with the necessary stakeholders to establish a foreign exchange allocation committee to bring greater transparency, equity, and strategy to the allocation of scarce foreign exchange resources. We will be implementing reporting obligations for high-volume importers to ensure that foreign currency inflows and outflows are better monitored and aligned with the country's national strategic economic priorities.
One of the mandates of this new government is to deal with the Forex crisis that they inherited. Nirad, I'm going to get you the first bite of this one. What did you make of that announcement in Parliament by the Finance Minister this afternoon?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. You know, as I said earlier, more government control and involvement, direct involvement in the economy is not good. So I would prefer that we focus on the supply side. And as I said, they mentioned some things around the supply side. But trying to overmanage foreign exchange could have the impact of denting confidence. So we need to be careful how we approach that. And I'm not sure what that committee would look like. I'm not sure what access to information it would have. And those are things that would be of concern if not done properly.
Karen, who would you like to see on this committee if you had a choice?
Well, I'm not so sure about who I'd like to see, but what I would like to see is that in terms of the foreign exchange allocation, that it should be made more. I understood that they explained that the allocation is also takes into account how much each commercial institution uses in foreign exchange. But I think the measurement should be to what extent are you using the foreign exchange to produce for productive capacity, to earn foreign exchange? Because what I see happening in our country, why this has gone from 10-point-something billion to 5.3 billion, and 7 months of import cover, which it used to be 12 months, contrary to what the minister said. I think it was Brian Manning who was talking about 3 months for non-energy sector and 5 months for energy sector. Well, it was 12 months when this government came into office. So what you want to do is two things, in my respectful opinion. Most of our foreign exchange seems to be used by the retail sector. I read an article today. Retail sector either in retail or import of cars. And even when it is used in the so-called manufacturing sector, as Dr. Hussain has said, much of the input into the manufacturing sector is imported, and you're using your US dollars, and many of these companies that bring so-called manufacture goods here, which is most of the input is imported, and in many cases they take those earnings and invest it outside of the Trinidad and Tobago economy.
It doesn't stay here.
So the issue for me is they need to determine what are the conditions or the factors you are taking into account in the allocation of foreign exchange. And I think a major one is to what extent the business in which you are engaged is adding to the productive capacity and earning foreign exchange. And also...
So you think the government should be doing that? The government should be telling a business that's earning $10 million a year how much foreign exchange it could get?
No, I'm not saying that they're going to use yardsticks, and a yardstick should be your ability to earn productive.
No, but who's they? Who's doing that allocation? So right now, you get foreign exchange as a business from... No, the central bank gives the banks. And
I
then
know the
banks,
central bank gives the banks, but they give the bank, as my understanding is, they give the banks based on the size of their customer
business,
base. Yeah, but that's not a good measure, because if the size of their business is to bring in cars and to bring in equipment, which is using up my foreign exchange, and I can't get more than $100 or $200. Yes, I will support something. I will support you. Ask me, and I'm answering you. You are representing AmCham, so you have your position. So you are representing a certain interest thing. I am representing the political or a different perspective. And my perspective on that is that the allocation should take into account to what extent that you allocate funds that are going to be used to increase productive capacity and earn foreign exchange for this country, instead of using it up, exhausting our foreign exchange, because that is the problem now. The retail business, buy and sell. In fact, just one last point. The central bank, in its last report, just said that the import was far greater than the export. Yes, our import bill is much higher than our export bill. And even when we exported, much of the input into the export was imported. All right. So that's
the Chaguanas Chamber has been weighing in on this Forex issue. I just want to play a very quick clip. And on the back of that clip, we're gonna get the thoughts of the panel on it. Let's play that clip.
As the Forex crisis continues to tighten its grip on our economy, businesses, especially SMEs, are finding it harder to survive. Many can't access the foreign currency needed to restock goods, pay suppliers, or stay competitive. This isn't just a business problem, it's a national issue affecting jobs, prices, and economic stability. Business owners are not asking for special treatment or handouts. What they want is equity and transparency in how foreign exchange is distributed. It would be a wise and forward-thinking move for the Minister of Finance to create a dedicated Forex facility for SMEs through the commercial banks where they deal with on a daily basis. That would offer immediate relief to many struggling companies. But let's be clear, we can't fix this crisis by simply sharing what little Forex we have. We must focus on earning more by investing in exports, supporting non-energy industries, expanding tourism, and embracing digital opportunities. The Chaguanas Chamber of Industry and Commerce is calling for bold and coordinated action. It's time to build a resilient, self-sustaining economy that works for all.
Chaguanas Chamber President Baldat Maharaj weighing in on the Forex issue. Amrita, I'm going to come back to you with the same question. I know that you want to respond to that, but I am going to ask you, I think the who on that committee is going to be an important question to answer, because the finance minister himself promised transparency, also what Baldat Maharaj is calling for, transparency when it comes to foreign exchange.
Right. So in terms of this committee, before I say who I think should be on the committee, what I would say is that I think this is a short-term measure to try and improve the level of transparency that is there with the foreign exchange allocation. Transparency and improve the equitability in which foreign exchange is being allocated. Now, it is a short-term measure. It is not something that can be sustained for a very long period of time. So I tend to agree a little bit here with Mr. Tiwari, because it is not something that is usually recommended from an economic perspective. It is not sustainable, and I think it is just a stopgap measure to reach to a point where we could say that, you know, we have figured out what our growth strategy is. We have figured out what the structure of the economy is and how we are going to treat with the different policies to generate revenue and to generate foreign exchange so that we can improve the amount or the quantity of foreign exchange that we are earning. In terms of the persons who shall sit on this committee.
Or organizations. Persons from which organizations?
Correct. I'm going to list organizations. The central bank definitely needs to be there, given that they are they intervene in the foreign exchange market with an injection to balance the demand and the supply in the foreign exchange market. The Bankers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and also major stakeholders needs to be there. There should be a strong representative from micro and small businesses, because they dominate the largest concentration of the economy. And also there should be representation from the trade and repairs sector, that is the retail sector, the wholesale sector, because when you decompose the GDP growth of our country and you take away the energy sector, you see that when you talk about non-energy sector growth and expansion of the non-energy sector being more than the energy sector, that actually comes not so much from manufacturing. It comes from trade and repairs, which is dominated by the retail sector and the wholesale sector in Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, we do have the TNT Chamber President on Zoom with us, Sanjay Chase, as well as economist Justin Ram, Dr. Justin Ram. I'm going to come to you first, Sanjay, and get your initial reaction to the announcement from the Finance Minister that he will set up what he calls a Forex Management Committee.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you for having us. In terms of the Forex Management Committee, I tend to agree with Amrita there. At the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber, the issue is not only on an issue of allocation, but an issue of supply. So yes, the Chamber has been calling for more transparency as it relates to allocation, and I think that is where the committee's role will be very critical. And I want to endorse what Mr. Maharaj had said earlier, that the SME sector is the one that is significantly affected when it comes to the allocation and distribution of the Forex. But more importantly, Ryan, we have to look at the supply side, which is the point Nirad was making. The discussion can't just be on allocation. It has to look at the supply. And the minister alluded to some of the points. We have a large portion, whether we want to admit it or not, we have a large portion of Forex that is circulating in the informal market. We need to get that into the banking sector. We have the issue of capital flight. We have the issue of persons not wanting to bank their foreign exchange in US in the banking system in Trinidad and Tobago because the exchange rate on their capital when it's banked here is not attractive. So addressing everything in a holistic manner is where we see this committee's role, if it is to be constituted properly, this committee's role being of significant importance. When it comes to the distribution of the Forex to the SME sector, Mr. Maharaj is on point. It is about survival. We have members who have said to us, because of their inability to access foreign exchange, they had to close up their business. They had to shut their business down. And this is foreign exchange that was needed, for critical inputs, not just distribution, as Karen was alluding to. This is for critical inputs into their business. And without it, and they can't source it without the foreign exchange, because unfortunately, we have not looked at as yet at a system where our manufacturers can conduct trade in another currency outside of internationally traded currencies. We have systems in the CARICOM region right now where other CARICOM member states are exploring, this international trading system. And this is something that the chamber is expecting the foreign.
A little bit of feedback from Sanjay Pierre. We'll come back to her. Dr. Ram, if you're hearing me, is this the first important step for this administration in solving the Forex crisis?
Ryan, I don't think so. When I think about the Forex crisis for me is really a symptom of a much bigger problem that this economy is facing. I think what we have to understand is, why are we having this foreign crisis? The main reason is that 70% of what people consume in Trinidad and Tobago is foreign. And so government really needs, I think, instead of some Forex distribution committee, it really needs to have a real Trinidad and Tobago Economic Advisory Board in place, which will seek to reduce the overall use of foreign exchange for consumption and seek to produce more at home and produce more of what we consume at home, maybe pushing that from 70% of consuming imports to perhaps consuming locally produced goods or some value-added goods at 70%, and then having excess production ready for the export markets. So I see the foreign exchange discussion really as a symptom of a much wider problem of the economy. And I think the government really needs to focus on the fundamental structural problems of the economy. Of course, today was just the mid-year budget review, and we didn't really have much policy announcements. But I would really want the government to say, okay, we are putting in place an economic advisory board to look at how we can grow this economy, how we can produce more, and therefore import less and produce more items that we can also export, thereby providing much more jobs for our people. Because I think what is missing from the discussion right now, Ryan, is a real focus on some of the social indicators. At 55% labor force participation rate, that is not good enough for an economy like Trinidad and Tobago. Something is fundamentally wrong there. And perhaps our poverty rates, which we have not measured for a long time, is perhaps north of 15 or even 20%. These are the type of issues that I think we really want the new government to start focusing on, so that we return economic policy to focus on the human condition rather than just these massive macro indicators. Foreign exchange is just really a symptom of overall economic problems that we have in that country.
Nods in the studio here, Dr. Ram. But to be fair, maybe perhaps he didn't act on it in the way that he spoke at length about it. But for much of the last 10 years, former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley spoke at length about our importation, particularly when it comes to our appetite for foreign foods. But the Trinidad and Tobago Advisory Board, that's a strong point that Dr. Ram made, Nirad. How does it meet your ear?
Yeah, so if you looked at the schedule as was gazetted, schedule under ministries, the Economic Advisory Development Board that was started under the last People's Partnership Administration and the Competitiveness and Innovation Council are both listed under the Ministry of Planning. So it seems like they have plans to bring them back. And I would certainly support that. We support that at AmCham. But I think Justin's fundamental point that Forex allocation, Forex is a symptom. So we cannot address the Forex issue if we have a combination of an overvalued currency, an overheated economy, right? So Amrita was talking about how much we're spending in the economy, what the size of the budget is, and there's an impact on that. That leads to, those two things lead to additional consumption of foreign goods because it is cheaper and the money is flowing to buy them. And therefore there's pressure on the currency and there's less incentive to develop activities, business activities, that are generating goods for the local market that are locally produced, when you can make a significant margin engaging in trade because the economic conditions incentivize that. And then you have limited investment opportunities for your foreign exchange here. You have a less than favorable or less than friendly business environment, whether that's starting at the borders when you're trying to bring in goods and the problems at the ports and customs, or whether that is starting an operating business, or whether that is crime, whether that is industrial relations climate. So we have to fix those things so that it is easy to do business. And if it is easy to do business, including accessing the foreign exchange that you would need to secure the inputs for your business, because very few businesses will be 100% self-sufficient. Some are. Casey Candy is. There's a Vitana tech company that's in UE that is a net foreign exchange earner, and etc. So it's possible. But how do we create those conditions to deal with the symptom and not treat the symptom as the source of the problem?
My director wants me to take a break, but I do want to get Karen and Amrita very quickly before this break, because when we come back, I want to talk about a different topic. Karen?
So I think Dr. Ram hit the nail on the head. We definitely have to do more production, because what we're doing is trade. You're using up our foreign exchange. Why does this country have so many franchises? Why do we give licenses to so many of them? They're not good for your health. They're non-communicable diseases, and they're using up our foreign exchange, low-income jobs, no dead-end jobs. Who is benefiting from that? Why must my bill for food import be over $7 billion a year? Why do we import so much food? It is time we deal with food security. It's time to bring down that food bill, and it's time that we put the emphasis, as Dr. Ram said, on productive capacity rather than buying and selling, which benefits who? A small sector of this society, and we need to think of what is best for the country and not for a small community in this country who have their own self-interest.
Amrita.
Yeah, so what we are talking about here is basically trying to change the structure of the economy, right? And this is a conversation that we have been having since I've started to study economics, right? So, and this is going to be a long, hard process. What needs to be done? The government, the new administration needs to sit. They need to start with all the macroeconomic indicators and the social indicators, as Dr. Ram has indicated. We haven't had a poverty assessment of the country. Look at the poverty indicators. Look at the structure of the small and medium enterprises in the country. Look at all the social indicators and come up with a comprehensive economic growth strategy for Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, let's take a break. But when we come back, Finance Minister Devendranath Tanku pegging his mid-year budget, forecasting that the price of a barrel of oil will be $66 for the rest of this year. When it comes to natural gas, $5 per MMBTU. When we come back, the panel weighs in.
Downy Unstoppables are laundry scent boosters. Add a capful before each wash and you'll be amazed. The blast of freshness that lasts and lasts. Whoa, what a blast! Even at the end of the day, you'll still be enjoying that blast of freshness in your clothes. Downy Unstoppables, the blast of freshness that lasts and lasts.
ChatGPT, I'm falling.
Failing grades? Contact Student Hub.
I ain't say failing, I say falling.
Then it's time to stop failing. Student Hub helps students succeed online. If school feels like a free fall, Student Hub helps you land on top.
Gaming Express Limited is a premium importer and retailer of the highest quality brand name electronics. We stock the widest range of PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Samsung and Apple devices and accessories. Visit us at Shop 52, Level 2, Gulf City Mall in San Fernando, or contact us by phone or WhatsApp message at 687-7480 or 301-9797 or 798-1280. Like our Facebook and Instagram pages for updates on products and services.
Rudy celebrates 10 years with his one-man show, Love Is, June 21st and 22nd at Queen's Hall. One children show, two adult shows, one hilarious weekend. So wait, who on this Love Is show? Apple, Wetty, Flicky, Jessica, Cherise, Maya Kai, Mr. Trevor, Miss Janice. Alrighty, rock. Wait, I not hearing my name. We have John Paul from Canada, Penelope from Belmont, and Cecilia from Diggle. I still not hearing my name. Tickets available at Dorman Shoe Store, Beachology, Mokorapa Road, Gate Square Stores, Eastgate Mall, Brentwood Plaza, The Falls at West Mall, C3 Center, San Fernando, Electronics Arima, Queen's Hall box office, and online at islandetickets.com. All year Roddy only using me and I not in the show who he feel I is. Bubbly Builder. For more info, call 376-5699 or 683-4843.
Magical Expressions Limited is the largest local importer and distributor of fresh cut stems, offering the widest range of beautiful flowers at the most affordable prices. Call us today at 701-6488, 701-6680, 728-6786, or visit our website to order. Recession have you down? Don't lose hope. Head on down to Tire Clinic for the recession deals. That should big savings with our road hazard warranty on Dunlop, Sumitomo, and Falcon tires. Available at Tire Clinic, Couva, Chaguanas, and Plaisance Park. Tire Clinic, a tire for every need. Call 636-8973 or 636-2958.
With Redoxytose Plus, you'll notice their defenses kicking in. Strong defenses look so good on your kids.
I think what is important as we transition to deep water play is how do we solve the gap in between, right? What is the government doing to incentivize the operators that we have to venture into deep water? What is the government doing to incentivize new operators as we have the existing operators in our country for the last, 2 to 3 decades? Going into deep water is way more capital expensive compared to shallow water lanes. Government needs to open the operators, provide certain incentives, certain tax rates or allowances that would make such investment, some massive investment, very attractive. We are one of the largest, most mature oil field plays in the world that you never explored in the deep nets of it.
All right, Nicholas Mai from Artemis Energy weighing in on what he had hoped the energy part of the finance minister's statement would look like there. Talking about energy, Finance Minister Devindranath Thakur sort of reforecasting what he thinks the price of a barrel of oil will be for the rest of the year. He put it at $66, and per MMBTU for natural gas, he has down at $5. Now, I just had a quick check of the oil prices for today. A barrel of oil today costs $73.29, $73. This is according to Brent. And natural gas, as we forecast with Japan, Korea, $12.50. I'm going to bring in Dr. Justin Ram. Firstly, Dr. Ram, it's slightly under what former Finance Minister Com Imbert would have forecasted a few months ago. Does the forecast of the Finance Minister, Dave Thakur, surprise you at $66 per barrel and $5 per MMBTU for natural gas?
I guess given the current geopolitical situation, it's probably a bit surprising, but I would say I actually welcome the Finance Minister being conservative with his prices, because more than likely the actual prices that we will receive for our oil and our natural gas will likely be higher because of what's currently happening geopolitically. But then again, we don't know. Perhaps there could be some peace that could break out in the Middle East. There could be peace perhaps happening in Kiev and Russia, and perhaps sort of ensuring that we have stability in these prices. So we're not sure. Many economists have actually die trying to forecast the price of oil. And so I'm not going to be here sitting down trying to forecast the price of oil for you. But I would say to you that I do welcome a finance minister who is conservative in his estimations of the forecasted price. It means that if anything goes well, we have a lot of upside risk here. And more than likely, I think with respect to these particular prices of commodities, it's likely that the prices are going to rise over the course of this year. And hopefully that would mean that the government will earn more revenue and perhaps negate the need for the large deficits that we are currently seeing. Perhaps we might have a much lower deficit. And perhaps going into the next financial year, we could have a situation where the government is in a particularly better position. And all I can say is that whatever windfall revenues we might receive from a higher price, that we can utilize those revenues in a way that seeks to start diversifying this economy for the better, based on the things that I've said before, in terms of trying to restructure this economy for more local production and less imports. I think these are the things that we really want to see right now. Those are the type of discussions, more importantly than the price of oil or natural gas. Because if I think about it, when I was a boy in the 1980s, we were speaking about the price of oil that the finance minister would be using to predict his budget revenue. We are now in 2025 and we're still doing the same thing. And something is fundamentally wrong with that. I think we need to start thinking about restructuring this economy so the price of oil and natural gas don't loom as large as it were for our economic circumstances. I think ultimately we want to try to move away from having the price of oil and natural gas looming large on our economic circumstances so that other areas of the economy can start to grow and play a much more meaningful role for the employment and overall revenue generation for the Trinidad and Tobago economy.
Dr. Ram didn't name it by name, but he's talking about diversification of the economy, something that we all have been hearing since we were children. I just wonder, though, in the interim, Nirad, the price of oil and gas geopolitically is going to be an important factor for our economy. And were you hoping that the finance minister would have been a little bit more optimistic, given what continues to happen in Ukraine? And then in the last few weeks, we have seen Israel and Iran now at war.
Yeah. So I mean, we're producing what, 51,000 barrels of oil per day on average last year. So the oil price of course is less important than the gas price, but together they have an impact. I'm not so sure that the gas price is that conservative. Given where it is, I mean, if $5 US per MMBTU. Yeah, I'm saying so. I'm not sure that the gas price announced today is particularly conservative, unless, of course, there's an escalation between Iran and Israel or a prolonged period of high tension. You know, just for fun, yesterday in preparation for this, I asked ChatGPT what it predicts the price to be, and it said somewhere between 4.2 and 4.5. That's not too far. For us, right? Well, that's 50 cents. But we also have to understand that because of the HSF legislation, when the revenue is higher than the budgeted price of oil or gas, a certain portion has to go into the HSF. Mm-hmm. And so there's sort of a disincentive to under budget or underprice the commodity. I think what's important, though, is that for the first 9 months of the year, production of gas has been relatively steady compared to last year. And if we do get higher prices, and we are seeing an uptick in gas prices, notwithstanding our need to diversify, we're dealing with today's reality. We need the gas revenue, and we need the petrochemical revenue. If we do see an uptick in prices, it will also affect petrochemicals, and so the revenue to the government and the foreign exchange to the government should increase over the next 3 months, assuming things continue more or less as they are or get worse geopolitically. And then they would have a little more fiscal space, hopefully, going into the next fiscal period.
Amartya.
Yeah, I actually welcome the conservative estimate with respect to the budgeted price of oil. This was something that I always preferred in terms of my analysis because of how volatile energy prices has been since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, energy prices has taken a different level of volatility since COVID-19. And with the rise of geopolitical tensions as well, it has also increased the volatility. Even though there is the conflict between Israel and Iran taking place right now, based on my analysis, there has, from the main forecasting agencies of oil prices, there isn't any consensus yet as to this
how long it will be, yeah, and if we will actually see a windfall
for a long period of time, right? So I figure that it is right. It's too early yet to tell, even though we have that choke point where 31% of our oil supplies, oil shipments pass through. That is also under threat. So it's a hit or miss at this point, and it's difficult to say that, you know, we are going to get this windfall. And it's for that reason that I would, if I was the Minister of Finance, I would have chosen a more conservative estimate as well.
We were talking about that straight before the camera started rolling, Karen.
Okay, so let me just say this first. Oil is back. That's the big news. Okay, so the big companies, Shell, BPTT, and all the big players have pivoted away from green energy back to fossil fuel. They took out $5 billion out of their investment in green energy and put $10 billion into fossil fuels. Not only that, they had a big project in Brazil, $10 billion worth project for solar and wind. They shut that down. I think it was Shell. So that it's clear that the big players are putting their money into the oil, and the cleanest of it is the natural gas. On top of that, BPTT has 10 global projects in the gas industry, in the natural gas, and one of them is in Trinidad, and it's called Ginger. And Ginger is coming on stream in 2027. SIP came on stream as they had said it would come in 2025. So our problem has been production and price. Clearly, there is a commitment now you're seeing from both Shell and BPTT with Lauren Manatee, delinking Lauren from Manatee. You've seen the Coquina Mannequin. You've seen that delinking so that the Shell and I think BP made a final investment decision with regard to that. So you're clearly seeing the big players, Shell and BPTT, putting their money into the fossil fuel. So that's good news for us. And secondly, we can't underestimate what's happening with the Israel-Iran war, because it's not just a question of how much oil Iran has. You realize it's the same kind of, what I will say with the United States, with Venezuela. If you realize all the countries that the United States with their petrodollar and they're wanting to dominate the currency, which they're losing strength with that. I think Dr. Hussain did an excellent article, excellent talk on that with the Caribbean pivoting to having paying for goods in each other's currency, so that they supposedly save on the foreign exchange. But then he said, the same point I've been making, he said that at the same point in time, the imports are still being brought in from abroad, and you're paying for it in US dollars. So bottom line to what I'm saying there, I think the Strait of, I can't remember how you pronounce it. Hormuz. They say 20 to 30 million barrels pass through a day, 20% of the global supply of oil. So you cannot underestimate the impact. And one thing has always been the case, the 1980s, you probably weren't around then, but in the 1980s, the economy tanked. So it's not, that's why they say energy is volatile. So yes, it's looking good for us. And as Dr. Ram said, maybe the revenue position is going to be much better than anticipated in the next 3.5 months, so that the fiscal deficit will be less than we anticipated. I'm hoping that will be the case, and I believe that might be so.
Well, Finance Minister Dave Tanku estimates it to be just under $10 billion. When we come back, we'll hear the TNT Chamber respond to $66 per barrel, the forecast from the Finance Minister. Stay with us. You're watching the State of the Treasury here on CNC3.
As parents, we want the best for our children. to see them grow up healthy, happy, and strong. But did you know that there's a virus so common that most people have it at one point in their lives?
HPV stands for the human papillomavirus.
It's a virus that can cause cervical cancer and other types of cancers. But the good news is, there's a way to prevent it.
So, is the HPV vaccine really necessary?
Yes. The HPV vaccine helps your child's immune system fight the virus before it can do any harm, between ages 9 to 26 years old.
But Doc, I heard this vaccine is only for girls.
The HPV vaccine is given to both boys and girls. It protects against penile and cervical cancers.
The vaccine is safe, effective, and recommended by professionals worldwide. It's available through school programs and health centers at no cost. Let's give our children the protection they deserve. Let's be HPV heroes. Get them vaccinated today.
Rudy celebrates 10 years with his one-man show, Love Is, June 21st and 22nd at Queen's Hall. 1 children show, 2 adult shows, 1 hilarious weekend. So wait, who on this Love Is show? Apple, Wetty, Mark, Flicky, Jessica, Cherise, Maya Kai, Mr. Trevor, Miss Janice. Alrighty, rock. Wait, I not hearing my name. We have John Paul from Canada, Penelope from Belmont, and Cecilia from Diggle. I'm still not hearing my name. Tickets available at Dorman Shoe Store, Beachology, Mokorapa Road, Gate Square Stores, Eastgate Mall, Brentwood Plaza, The Falls at West Mall, C3 Center San Fernando, Electronics Arima, Queen's Hall Box Office, and online at islandetickets.com. All year Rodeo only using me and I not in the show who he feel I is. Bob the Builder. For more info, call 376-5699 or 683-4843.
With Redoxytose Plus, you'll notice their defenses kicking in. Strong defenses look so good on your kids.
Southern Food Basket. Quality food to fill your basket. Get it all at Southern Food Basket. Fresh goods on every aisle with best prices. For the best mix and market, high quality, yes. It's affordable, spacious, and customer friendly. From the farm to the cart to your plate, Southern Food Basket, good food at great prices. Come on home, everybody, don't you wait. Southern Food Basket's the best marketplace for you. Southern Food Basket. Quality food to fill your basket. Southern Food Basket. Quality food to fill your basket.
It would be good for us to see some sort of economic roadmap towards a sustained fiscal recovery for Trinidad and Tobago. Because the reality is that as a nation, we are not in a good place. And of course, the government has recognized this, and of course, they are now telling the public the true state of the economy. But beyond that, we need to see how we are able to navigate our way out of this crisis, because that's what true leadership gives. You not only are able to identify the problem, but you are also able to put together a package of solutions.
All right, Martin George, attorney at law and Tobago Chamber chairman, weighing in on what he hopes the new administration brings to the table as it pertains to the economy. Sanjay, I want to bring you back in here. She's the TNT Chamber president. What have you made of the announcement that Finance Minister Dave Tanku will peg his mid-year budget going forward to the rest of this fiscal year at $66 per barrel of oil and $5 per MMBTU of natural gas?
Thanks, Ryan. I mean, I want to endorse what all of the others speakers have stated on the position. In the last quarter of this fiscal year, it will be prudent for the finance minister to be very conservative in his price point. So it is something that we would endorse, taking the very conservative approach that he has taken in pegging the price at $66 and $5 respectively. My understanding is that the minister would have had his eyes on all of the aspects of the energy sector. So you would have looked at the ammonia, methanol, LNG, and these probably would have influenced where he would set the price when it comes to having a very conservative approach. But I want to come back to the point that Dr. Ram made, which is a very important point. We have to, at some point in time, and Amrika was making the statement, it's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, but we have to, at some point in time, move our discussion where our budget is influenced heavily by the energy sector. So we have to look at areas where we can generate foreign exchange in new areas, the creative sector, trade and services. These are all positions that I know the government looking at very closely in terms of new revenue streams for the country. And the volatility as it happens with what's going on right now in geopolitical sphere influences significantly how our budgets are affected. And we can't be so dependent on these international shocks and volatility. We have to be in control of our revenue generation. So we have to look at areas where we can have significant control, and it will be looking at the non-energy sector. And there's something that the Chamber has been promoting and pushing. You have the creative sector, you have the services sector, you have a large volume of areas that we could look at. Before I go, Ryan, I just want to come back to the issue of the Forex, because we were speaking on it when we encountered some technical difficulties. And I was making the point to you that the supply is a key factor in the discussion. I didn't get to make the statement.
It just doesn't want her to make that statement. I do apologize for that. We have some technical challenges with Sanji as well. I do want to bring up in this conversation now, though, the finance minister talked about budget reform. Interim, he did admit in the interim we'll be borrowing our way towards the financial package that he will deliver end of September, early October. But it brings into the question the scrapping of the TNT Revenue Authority. He did say in this presentation that they will be looking at making the inland revenue, Karen, a lot more efficient. Is it really possible to make it as efficient as it needs to be to collect revenue? And are you a fan of them scrapping the TTRE within 6 weeks in government?
Well, exactly that. And that's the point I was probably saying to Nirad, they're new, yes, but in 6 weeks you make a decision like that. Have you dealt with the issues if you're going to transfer?
I mean, on the platform, on the political campaign trail, it was one of their campaign promises. Yes. And as we've seen already, Karen, they are going to, no matter what the circumstances are, they're prepared to hold on to those campaign promises and deliver them no matter what it costs.
I understand that, but the quick repeal, the sort of urgency in repealing it without dealing with the issues with Board of Inland Revenue and Customs. And a major issue is the public service. I mean, it's the public service all over the world. We've been talking about public service reform since Gordon Draper's time. The issues with the public service is security of tenure, but the promotion, discipline, the meritocracy rather than seniority, all those factors play into the way in which the Revenue Authority, the Board of Inland Revenue, as it is now, Customs have operated. Gordon Dean did a report many years ago, identified the inefficiencies, and these are driven by human nature. And so I can't see, if you have not addressed the public service issues and dealt with reform in the public service, put these persons back into the public service doesn't seem to make sense. And we had a case, Teresa Doria, I want to mention very quickly, because they went to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council lady Simla made the point. She said, listen, I'm not taking the argument that that the public servants perform core functions in revenue collection. They're not taking the Court of Appeals approach. What they said is the Chapter 9 in the Constitution, setting up the Police Service Commission, is to insulate the public servants from political interference and executive overreach. And she was satisfied that the structure of the Revenue Authority, she gave two conditions. She said she was satisfied that the Revenue Authority, that's September last year, she was satisfied that the Revenue Authority was not a sham or device, and she was satisfied that there were enough checks and balances built into the system that the question of executive overreach and executive interference, which is why the constitutional protection of the Police Service Commission exists, you satisfied that there was no such threat. So given the issue with the public service, given the fact that she took that position up to last year, I cannot see the rationale for shutting down the Revenue Authority.
Dr. Justin Ram, let me bring you in here. Karen is, and she's been quite vocal about her dissatisfaction, if that's the right word to use, with the government in the first 6 weeks, 7 weeks of its administration, shutting down the idea of a TTRA. But now we have the finance minister speaking about making the Inland Revenue a much more efficient organization. What are your thoughts on the finance minister's direction for the economy as it pertains to the TTRA and the Inland Revenue? Pertains to the TTRA and the Inland Revenue. Pertains to the TTRA and the Inland Revenue. Pertains to the TTRA. I'm hearing more of myself than I'm hearing of Dr. Ram. We'll come back to him in a bit. Nirad, I'll throw that question to you.
So we support the TTRA. We supported it. We think we thought it would provide a better structure in which to work. Having said that, I've been around long enough, from a journalist to being in chambers for almost 2 decades now, to know that the structure isn't as important as the execution and the intent. And we've been in meetings facilitated by the Ministry of Finance with the international agency responsible for revenue collection, with the IMF. And they have said revenues work, revenue authorities work, but so too do inland revenue divisions that are properly run. And so the goal has to be to widen the tax net first, right? And by widening the tax net, I mean bring more people into the tax net. And by all means, if you know that there are certain people that are out there that are either underpaying taxes or not paying taxes, and you have credible information, do what needs to be done to go after those people, okay? We have been suggesting to every minister who would listen, there's one simple thing that you could do tomorrow to start increasing revenue within a month. And that is take the government-held and privately held GIS data that would tell you where everybody and everything is located, from professional service people to small businesses to large businesses. Overlay it, start with a region, start with an electoral district if you want, because that's how that's how our geographic regions are. And overlay it and see how many taxpayers do you have and how many people are not in the tax net. So what you do is you start widening the net. And you could do that in a non-punitive manner. You could say, you know what, we're not going after you. If you come in within this 1-year period, we're not going after you for back taxes if your taxes are under a certain threshold. Right? What we want to do is bring you into the tax net, and we want you to start paying taxes. And all of a sudden you could see, you wouldn't get to the 10 billion, but you could increase by $1 billion, 2, 3, 4 billion, I'm sure, in a 1-year period, if you do something as simple as that. So it is about looking at where the deficiencies in the inland revenue. The decision has been made. Nothing we say here is going to change it. So the decision has been made. So look at the inefficiencies in the inland revenue division. Make sure that they have enough people, the right technology and the right mandates, and empower the people who are in positions of leadership to hold others accountable. And let's do what we need to do, which is increase the revenue through taxation that is legitimately owed to the government and therefore to the people.
Amrita, I do want to get your take on this, but I'm going to take a very quick break. When we come back, you'll answer it. Let's take a break here on the state of the Treasury. When we come back, we'll have Amrita Deinarine talk about it.
At Cruise Inn Hotel and Yachting Center, we're all about time. In fact, once you check in, there's no time to lose. Reconnect with a little family time. Make a splash with some pool time. Spend some treasured quality time. Or just immerse yourself in some quiet time. Indulge your senses at dinner time. We even have the perfect venue when it's your celebration time. So it's high time you visit Cruise Inn. Choose our day pass or call 607-4000 to make your dinner or hotel reservations, or to find out more about our event spaces. Take a time out at Cruise-In Hotel and Yachting Center.
Febreze. Still living with odors? Get back in there and freshen instantly with Febreze Air Mist. Febrze's fine mist floats longer in the air to fight even your toughest odors. So long, stinky smells, and hello, amazing freshness. Febreze Air Mist.
Whether wet or dry season, hazards can strike without warning, causing you or your family to quickly evacuate. You may not have the time to grab the essentials. Be sure to have your grab-and-go bag in easily accessible locations. Here are the top 7 categories that should be included and tailored to your family's need. 1. Non-perishable food items, water, and utensils. 2. First aid kit and extra medication. 3. Personalized items. 4. Change of clothing and comfortable footwear. 5. Copies of important documents such as birth papers and certificates. 6. Cash and small bills. And 7. Tools, safety items, and equipment. For more information on how to be ready, visit odpm.gov.tt. A message from the ODPM.
When I am with my friends and those pains that knock me down arrive, I take Panadol Ultra because it relieves fast 5 types of tough pain and it does not irritate the stomach. That's why my choice is always Panadol Ultra to feel relief quickly and enjoy every second. Panadol, release starts here.
He hit me. Will CG United cover this?
Don't worry. Remember when I was in that competitive arm wrestling circuit? Bad crushing all those arms and dreams. So I took them all out for ice cream. And then we got crushed. Anyway, CG United handled my claims fast.
That explains the arm.
The best cover for the best value. CG United. Good like that.
Get the best in affordable eyewear. Frames with blue filter lenses and eye exam, $399. Single vision lenses with transitions on designer frames, $799. Progressive transitions with designer frames, $1,399. Happening only at Seaview Optical. Affordable eye care for everyone.
Welcome back to State of the Treasury here on CNC3. We're unpacking Finance Minister Devendranath Thakur's first mid-year budget review. I want to bring in Dr. Justin Ram. I believe we've sorted out his technical issues. Dr. Ram, we were talking about scrapping of the TTRA by the UNC administration and now seeking to make the inland revenue more efficient. You were bringing up some points on that before. Unfortunately, I hid myself and not you. And I'd like you to give you the opportunity to continue.
Yeah, well, as Nirad has already said, the government has made the decision to scrap the TTRA, and they have said that that's what they're going to do, and in turn they want to improve the efficiency of the inland revenue, the Board of Inland Revenue, and so that's fine. I mean, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm neither here nor there about how you go about collecting the taxes. What I'm more concerned about is whether it's easy to pay taxes, and whether the taxes that you are paying are being used in an efficient manner. And so I would want to say to the government, one, as we said, we want to try to improve the overall local production within this economy, to import less and to perhaps export more. What are the type of incentives that are required there? I think we have to look at using the fiscal regime to encourage investment in production, and to perhaps penalize the consumption of final imports. I think that's what we need to do. And one thing I would say to the government, like for example, I'm currently in Barbados, and they have a very, very low corporation tax rate here. It means that there's very little incentive to try to avoid paying taxes. This is just some of the things that I think the government needs to look at. Make it simple to pay taxes, perhaps do that digitally, lower perhaps the tax rates, and in effect, coming to consider what some of the other panelists have said, that might in effect broaden the overall tax base of the economy, because it really does not, when you have lower tax rates, it does not incentivize the tax dodging as it were. And perhaps the government might be able to increase its overall tax take. So I would say instead of focusing on whether we're abolishing the TTRA or not, let us focus more on how we can make paying taxes more efficient and have a tax and fiscal regime that is conducive to investment and to more local production.
Amrita, I'm going to come back to you with it. There is a belief on this desk, not from everyone, but that the inland revenue, in order to make it more efficient, it really has to, it redounds to people and not system. Am I right in how I analyze that for you, or am I wrong?
Well, you are right to some extent, because the premise of the TTRA was to deal with a lot of the people issues that was encountered within the Board of Inland Revenue, and also to deal with a lot of issues with the exchange of information that was prohibited between the Customs and Excise Unit and the Board of Inland Revenue. As it is right now, there is a limitation, a restriction through the secrecy provisions of the Board of Inland Revenue to exchange information with Customs and Excise. And so that was the whole intention behind the TTRA, was to merge both of them together, both units together, and create something called a semi-autonomous revenue authority. The model that was proposed and passed with the now repealed revenue authority was not so much a semi-autonomous revenue authority. It was a hybrid model, a model that was very much similar to, I believe it's Estonia's model of a revenue authority, because what ended up happening is that although the Board of Inland Revenue ended up being delinked from the Public Service Commission, we ended up in a situation where the Enforcement Division, which is where the Customs and Excise Division ended up in, was not delinked from the Public Service Commission. And a lot of the Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment report by CARTAC, it's a unit within the International Monetary Fund, a lot of the findings in that report would have pointed out to a lot of systematic issues that were people-driven. And so for example, there was a lot of need for
reforming?
No, a lot of need for additional skill set within the compliance division, for example. And that was going through the process to hire those vacancies and to fill those positions was something very difficult. The other challenge with the identified in that report had to do with the fact that going through that process to enhance the performance or to correct the performance of staff, it was challenging, because the process through which the Board of Inland Revenue and the Customs and Excise Division had to go through in terms of to get that sort of discipline or to discipline staff. What I would say, though, is that now that the TTRA has been repealed, there is no going back to a TTRA, and the government has made it very clear that, the trajectory in which they're going forward with is one where they're going to improve the Board of Inland Revenue. And there are a lot of areas within the Board of Inland Revenue that can be improved, especially with respect to the use of the gen tax system. There's also an area within the compliance unit that can be improved. But all these systematic issues, there can be improvements, but they will reach a point where they may hit a roadblock, and then we'll have to revisit that issue of the people issues within the Board of Inland Revenue and Customs and Excise. And the last thing that I want to say is that rather than focusing on what we cannot do within the Board of Inland Revenue right now, let's focus on what we can do to improve the revenue collection mechanisms, because there are things that can be done to improve revenue collection. But let us also use this as an opportunity to build build trust in the tax system. And, you know, while we want persons to pay their taxes and we want them to, you know, go ahead and fulfill their obligations, at the same time, we want the Board of Inland Revenue and all the revenue collection agencies to look at businesses and individuals on a spectrum. There are persons and there are businesses who are very much looking to evade taxes, but there's also that spectrum of persons who really are making an honest mistake and therefore just needs, want to say, a blight or a unit, let's say a taxpayers' rights unit that can sit and go through and explain to these businesses, these small and medium enterprises especially, and individual sole traders, explain to them that, look, this is how you go about the process. This is what has to be done. You've made a mistake. You've evaded taxes in this period of time, but going forward, this is what has to be done. So I think a lot of it has to be that the tax base, the existing tax base, feel as if that their rights are not being heard and it's not being listened to. And if we can rebuild some trust in the tax system, that would go a long way.
All right. It's just past 9 p.m. in fact, so we're going to spill over a little bit, but I do want to get closing remarks from everyone, starting with those who have joined us virtually. Sanji, Dr. Ram. Sanji, I'll go with you first, and then Dr. Ram.
Thank you, Ryan. In terms of the closing remarks, all of the speakers have alluded to it earlier. At the last quarter, really a review was what was necessary. The expectation wasn't for any significant announcement on measures. We know what the state of the economy is. What we're looking for now is how we can address some of the issues that are affecting us economically. The ministers pointed out to some key areas. Over the next coming days, we are in tune to hear how the administration plans to deal with some of these issues, the Forex issue, the ease of doing business, digitization of government services, some of which Amrika just spoke about. I wanted to make the point that right now, in our tax collection regime, you still cannot pay online. You have to make physical visits to the tax department, the Board of Inland Revenue, Custom Division, and pay by a manager's check. I mean, that is just not in keeping with the ease of doing business. To obtain the manager's check first and then to attend to the Customs and Excise Division or the Board of Inland Revenue to make your tax payment is the most inefficient way of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. So we are keen to hear what the government has to say on the ease of doing business, the Forex supply and allocation issue, and most importantly, addressing the crime situation, which affects business confidence. I had indicated previously that the cost of dealing with crime in business operation is too high. The business community is significantly weighed down by the economic pressures that befalls them with dealing with the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. We are prepared to work with the government.
Dr. Justin Ram, if you can, as brief as you can, your closing remarks.
Well, I think I just want to say the government has a perfect opportunity to chart a new course for this economy. And I would say to them that they really need to facilitate a new structure of this economy, which encourages more local production, the production so that people can have much more meaningful employment that allows them to take care of themselves rather than having to depend on transfers and subsidies, which is an area we didn't really speak enough about. And I think these are the areas that government needs to now focus on: the facilitation of more local production, less consumption of imports, and ensure that people have good jobs that they can then take care of themselves and their households. This is what I'd like to see the new government doing, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what the Minister of Finance has to say in his real budget statement, which will come later this year. So let's not focus too much on the symptoms of our economic problems. Let's now start to chart a course to reform this economy in a fundamental way, that we get the type of outcomes that we want for all of our citizens in Trinidad and Tobago.
Sanji Pierre Chase, as well as Dr. Justin Ram, thank you very much for bearing with the technical challenges that we had. We appreciate you guys. Back here in studio, 30 seconds each. Karen, I'll start with you.
Well, I think Justin Ram Dr. Ram has summed it up fairly well, and it's a mid-year review, so we wait until the budget itself. But the indications are that they are, at least at this point in time, they are trying to do exactly what a supplemental appropriation bill requires of one, and that is to fill the different what should I say, voids in the different
agencies and ministries.
So we'll wait and see. As Niraj has said, I think we have to wait till the budget to see exactly where they're going and how they intend to reform our economy.
Niraj?
Yeah, I think the government has a perfect opportunity where the population, by and large, understands it can't be business as usual. I think we as a population have to prepare ourselves that if we really want to see that change, that needs to come, and we'll get a good indication of whether they intend to make change in the budget or not. We have to understand that each one of us is going to feel some pain because we've gotten accustomed to certain things with the structure of the economy being what it is. And unless we are each prepared to give a little to get a lot in the medium to long term, then we're going to be barking at everything they do and finding fault with it. So how do we get them being the government, to agree on some key principles and objectives that broadly could find some consensus? How do we get the opposition to work on those key things so that we can all move in that one direction?
As briefly as you can, Amrita.
Yes, thanks, Ryan. I think in terms of closing remarks, final thoughts, I think, yes, I agree. It's a perfect opportunity for the new administration to look at the economy very closely. I urge the government to please take a data-driven approach to the growth strategy or whatever reforms or revenue mobilization strategies that they are designing and bringing forward. If the data is not there, it can be quickly accessible. Do the work and get the data to inform those strategies, because we cannot go and make hard decisions, justify hard decisions, and design policies that would put pain on the population without sufficient data and without it being properly articulated from an evidence-based point of view.
All right, Amrita, Niraj, Karen, thank you all very much for being on the program, and thank you very much for joining us for State of the Treasury. I'm Ryan Beachu, wishing you a good night.